Bird Day has come and gone, and most of you probably never even knew it happened last Friday. The state law says all school children are supposed to observe Bird Day, but it remains one of Utah's most obscure holidays. Still, we found one community where Bird Day is a big event. John Hollenhorst takes a look.
Now, this is probably not what the legislators had in mind when they ordered the observance of Bird Day. They probably saw it as a chance for quiet reflection, a day to appreciate the beauty of our feathered friends. But in Glen Canyon City, it's a chance to let off steam. If this all seems a bit strange, you've never been in Glen Canyon City. It's probably Utah's most unusual town, a thriving community of polygamists who have pledged allegiance to Alex Joseph, a self-proclaimed king, ruler of the kingdom of God. Joseph claims to be a religious patriarch, but his celebration of Bird Day is distinctly irreverent.
And I lift up that bucket and, gosh, I never saw such big water dogs in all my life. And I said,
A lying contest is one of the main events. Joseph says that teaches his people how to get along in society. Then there's an egg-throwing contest, and a balloon-popping contest, and of course, lots of food. In a town where nearly everyone is armed with pistols, rifles, and machine guns, you might expect a contest involving guns. Joseph says his mandate for Bird Day comes directly from the state legislature.
And in our anxiety to meet the requirements of the law, we have this Bird Day. And I understand that Governor Scott Matheson is behind Bird Day 100%. And the governor's for the birds, and we're for the birds.
Another explanation Joseph makes for the festivities here is that the world is a lot more fun if no one takes himself too seriously. That's a surprising statement from a man who considers himself to be the ruler of the kingdom of God. John Hollenhorst, Eyewitness News, Glen Canyon City, Utah. Even today, after more than 2 years of intense publicity, polygamists remain a mystery to most people. There are contradictions and contrasts. Some are flamboyant and open about their beliefs. Others live in secrecy and isolation. Many of them live in the canyon country of southern Utah, where the mainstream of life can pass them by. Others, perhaps thousands of them, live in metropolitan Salt Lake City, often unknown to their neighbors. No one even knows how many there are. The Mormon Church says less than 10,000. Other informed estimates range up to 30,000. All of them claim allegiance to the fundamental teachings of Joseph Smith and Jesus Christ, and most say that society has made them suffer for their beliefs. Price Johnson knows about that better than most people. For most of his 93 years, he has been a polygamist, although 2 of his 3 wives are now dead. His wife Helen remembers the days when polygamist communities were raided by lawmen and the husbands packed off to jail.
That was taken about the time of their raid there at Short Creek.
Oh yeah, in 53.
Mm-hmm.
In 1936, Price Johnson was arrested and taken to court in Kingman, Arizona. He says he was never allowed to explain his religious beliefs in court.
The prosecuting attorney said that we'd broken the civilization apart, and that they were building a bridge to put it together again by putting us in prison, doing away with these uncivilized ideas that we had.
Johnson was put in prison and then offered a parole if he would sign a pledge never to practice polygamy again.
And I stood up and I said, before I would break that covenant that I made to these women, and my God, I'd stay in this prison the rest of my life. Yes, I said I'd go to that gas chamber over there.
After his year in prison, Johnson lived the rest of his life knowing that society considered him a lawbreaker.
To be counted as an outcast and to have no friends, imagine it. See for yourself whether it would be a trial or not. Well, we've had to endure that for 50 years. See?
Are you glad you did?
I'm glad I did. I'd do it again, or maybe in a different way or more positive. But I'm glad I did it, and I'd do it over again.
One polygamist told us they no longer prosecute, they just persecute. We'll talk about that tomorrow. John Hollenhorst, Eyewitness News.
Dick Norse, Bob Welty, Paul James, Mountain America's #1 news team. From Broadcast House, Mountain America's news center, the most complete, comprehensive, and up-to-the-minute news reporting in the Mountain West, the Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
Good evening. There's speculation tonight that a statewide grand jury in Rock Springs, Wyoming may soon hand down indictments against public officials in that community. Over the weekend, their public safety director was charged with the murder of an agent who was scheduled to testify before the grand jury. Channel 5's John Hollenhorst is in Rock Springs tonight, along with photographer Dave Jackson. They report now on the mood of the people there in light of the alleged corruption charges against those public officials.
The events of the last week have been a crushing blow to this desert boomtown. Everywhere we went, there were two subjects of conversation, murder and corruption. By now, the people here are accustomed to seeing prostitutes on the street and to hearing stories of widespread drug abuse. But now they are beginning to face up to an ugly suspicion that their government is rotten to the core.
The town right now, I think, is it's just a powder keg. Everybody is really on edge. I guess both sides of the fence admit that there's a great deal of paranoia. There's a tremendous public outcry all of a sudden, and it perhaps has even tended to polarize the community more. I think that there's no question but what divisiveness is rampant in Rock Springs, Wyoming.
Following the shooting last weekend, a group of clergymen met and drafted a statement encouraging the people of Rock Springs to get involved in their government.
We must be aware of what's going on around us, and we can't stick our head in the sand, so to speak, and pretend that the rest of the community doesn't exist and these problems aren't here.
People have to get more involved and stop sitting on their duffs and let the machine run the situation like the Chicago machine did so for many years. They have to get out and register, and they got to vote. They've got to take the risk of running for office.
I would imagine that the real battleground, if you want to call it that, or the forum, and the proper one, will probably be the polling place. I'm sure that it's going to be a wild year politically in Rock Springs as well as the whole state of Wyoming.
There's a feeling here that indictments from the grand jury might help clear the air, that people might finally realize just how deep the corruption runs. But from what we've heard, it's obvious that it will be a long time before the self-image of this community is restored. John Hollenhorst, Channel 5 Eyewitness News, Rock Springs, Wyoming.
Theodore Bundy was convicted yesterday of murdering 2 Florida State University co-eds. The jury will recommend a sentence to the judge next week. Television was on trial in the courtroom, too. In Miami, Ed Rabel looks at that verdict.
As to count 2 of the indictment, murder in the first degree upon one Margaret Bowman, guilty as charged.
Theodore Bundy sat impassively listening to the jury's judgment that he was guilty of the Tallahassee sorority house killings. Described by his detractors as a cunning and savage killer linked to at least 21 sex slayings in several states, Bundy had had his day in court and on TV. At least 20 television stations from states thousands of miles away where Bundy suspected of having killed other young women set up shop alongside the 3 major commercial networks on the top floor of the courthouse to cover the long trial. The local stations beam back live reports to their local studios, in this case, Salt Lake City.
And Judge Edward Cowart will make the decision whether it would be life in prison or a death sentence.
All right, John, thank you very much. John Hollenhorst reporting live from Miami.
Millions of viewers saw a picture of the self-assured one-time law student leading his own defense in the Miami courtroom where one TV camera had been permitted under Florida's permanent camera in the courtroom system.
This is what, Your Honor, the Florida Court, United States Supreme Court, was addressing itself to.
Citing interference and, in this case, gruesome photographic evidence, Bundy's court-appointed attorneys asked Judge Edward Cowart to ban the TV camera, but he refused. Added to the defense objections are criticisms that cameras in the courtroom are disruptive, making jurors nervous and bringing out the ham in lawyers and judges. But Judge Cowart disagrees.
Generally, we have seen these expected plays have not developed. The trial of a lawsuit is a much more serious business than playing to a television camera.
In personally placing his stamp of approval on TV broadcasting from his courthouse, Judge Cowart joined many other jurists in this state who are labeling cameras in the courtroom a distinct success. The conduct of the Bundy trial, they say, could well influence other states that are considering following Florida's example. Ed Rabel, CBS News, Miami.
A parkway along the banks of the Jordan has been in the talking stages for most of this century. Ultimately, planners hope to purchase a corridor of land running the entire length of the river and develop it into recreation land. Today, the ribbon was cut for the first of many proposed developments, a jogging track at 17th South and 12th West. At various points along the track, there are exercise stations where joggers can tone up their muscles and improve their coordination. The overall plan for the parkway would involve several counties and a variety of municipalities, but the biggest stumbling block may be the cost of land along the river.
I would think that totally it would cost you $300–400 million.
Is that within the grasp of the taxpayers of Utah?
Well, it certainly isn't the grasp and under the present climate and in the immediate future.
In the very near future, planners hope to have canoes available for rent all up and down the river. That way the public can get out here on the water and rediscover the forgotten beauties of the Jordan River. For example, where else can you have the pleasure of paddling between an overturned couch and a refrigerator? On the Jordan, of course. There are other points of interest along the way, little bits of civilization that have somehow found their way into the water, water that in some places has an aroma to remember. And of course there's wildlife all along the banks. But the river does have its genuine beauty, long stretches where a paddler can forget he's in the middle of a metropolitan area, beautiful trees and flowers, and a sense of closeness to nature without driving miles from the city. And planners say the Parkway project has already improved the natural qualities of the river.
You know, they'll keep it clean. It's been an awfully dirty river. It's been significantly improved just in the last 10 years.
The stretch of river from 21st South to the north end of Salt Lake City has already been purchased in full. Planners know they have a long way to go, but they say the Parkway could become one of the state's most valuable recreation areas. John Hollenhorst, Eyewitness News on the Jordan River.
Good evening. There was another bank robbery today in Salt Lake City, but this one is very much out of the ordinary.
Shelley, the robber left behind what appeared to be a bomb and created some moments of tension around the bank. Our John Hollenhorst was an eyewitness as the scenario unfolded. Here's his report.
The man standing inside the bank with a trash basket on his head is Salt Lake Police Chief Bud Willoughby. To understand why Willoughby would be wearing such unusual headgear, a little background is necessary. The incident began a little after 1 o'clock when a man aged 45 to 55 entered the Pioneer Bank and began filling out a loan application. Bank officials became suspicious because the man took so long filling out the application.
I went and asked if I could help him, and he basically pulled out a device that appeared to be a bomb.
What did he say?
Said he'd like to have the money. He indicated that he had a short time to live and nothing to lose and wouldn't mind taking a few people with him.
The man got away with a small amount of money, and Salt Lake Police moved in. Bank employees and customers were moved away from the bank. Then Chief Willoughby arrived and took charge. Ropes were taken into the bank and looped around the bomb. Willoughby says he used to be the head of the bomb squad in Kansas City before coming to Salt Lake. The regular city bomb squad was unavailable, so Willoughby directed the effort. A yank on the rope failed to set the bomb off. Then flak jackets were taken into the bank for the last phase of the operation.
We're going to come right out in the middle of that field with it so everybody knows. Everybody completely cleared out of the field.
Then, as the cameras rolled and police stood by, Willoughby emerged from the bank, carrying the bomb in a flak jacket.
Gary, get way away. Right straight on ahead.
Willoughby later described the bomb as a device with 2 batteries, an antenna, and several objects that appeared to be dynamite.
The county doesn't have a trailer.
Yes, they do.
60-second ordinance was called. They're on the way. The man has everything he needs, and he'll be here shortly.
Chief, what do you think? Is that a real bomb?
Oh, you treat them all as a real bomb. The reason I put that on was because I don't want my eyes to go. See, if it goes up, it's going to go straight up, and that's why we put that in there.
Finally, Army experts arrived on the scene, and the bomb was loaded aboard a special vehicle. With a police escort, it was moved to a remote area near the airport and blown up. It turned out to be a harmless hoax. John Hollenhorst, Eyewitness News, Salt Lake City.
Game and other things that are happening.
You're right, that was all basketball. We're going to say goodbye to an excellent reporter, a very good friend, and an all-around great guy right after this. We won't be saying John Hollenhorst reports anymore here on Channel 5. John is leaving Salt Lake City to pursue his career in journalism at the #1 TV news station in Dallas. But before he goes, we'd like to show you some of John's greatest hits. Diana Davis assembled this collection.
About 1 out of every 5 elk in the state of Wyoming will be killed during the deer hunt season. Deer hunt season? Elk. The snow depth is now 5 feet 9.5 inches. John Hollenhorst, Channel 5 Eyewitness News, in the mountains of western Wyoming.
With a last name like Hollenhorst, John gets called everything but. Horst, Havenhurst, Hollingshorst, it starts sounding like a disease.
Channel 5 News, John Hollenhorst.
Probably the least known fact about John Hollenhorst is his middle name is Theviot, which is the name of my uncle's golden retriever.
John's memory for detail astounds his colleagues. It not only helps him cover the news, but comes in very handy in his off hours.
John is a trivia and jazz complete freak, and when we were covering the Bundy trial in Miami, every night he'd disappear and go to this jazz bar, and he'd come back in the morning with T-shirts, all different colors and sizes, and I happened to pick up one of them. And what he did was he won every trivia contest through the whole night, to the point where they wouldn't give him the T-shirt anymore unless he gave it away.
John came to KSL 4 years ago. He started with no TV experience, but he did have something extra.
I'll never forget the time John first walked into our office. He was driving a cab in Salt Lake City, and we had a job open as a desk assistant. I used to answer the telephones. And there were a couple other people that were graduating from college that were really on paper a little more qualified. But John had been working for a newspaper only in Minneapolis. And we had one of those, if you will, a gut feeling that here was a guy that knew journalism, had the right kind of attitude about things, and so we decided to give him a chance. And we've never been more right about anybody on a gut feeling than we were John Hollenhorst.
At KSL News, John has covered most of the major news stories in Utah in the past 4 years. Because of his intelligence and hard work, John has brought a dimension to stories that is rare in television journalism. We will miss John, not just for his ability to tell a complicated story so everyone can understand, but also because his energy and commitment to journalism is an inspiration. Edward R. Murrow is one of John's heroes. We'd like to say goodbye to John using Murrow's words. Good night and good luck.
We're going to miss John.
Not only on the air, but in the newsroom. Good luck, John and Sue in Dallas. Until 10 o'clock tonight, have a good evening.
He escaped from the Pitkin County Jail there in Aspen, but was apprehended. He later escaped from the Garfield County Jail in Glenwood Springs, a few miles away, and has not been seen since. The FBI bulletin today says he should be considered armed and dangerous and an escape risk. The Bureau says Bundy may be placed on the 10 most wanted list later in the month. A 21-year-old American fork man was arraigned in federal court today, charged with killing an American bald eagle. Dennis Adams pleaded not guilty to the misdemeanor offense. Federal authorities say Adams killed the national bird and cut off the eagle's talons. If convicted, he could be fined up to $5,000 and sentenced to a year in jail. Hundreds of Utahns could find themselves in legal trouble if the state begins cracking down on automobile emissions. That's because many drivers have removed the catalytic converters from their automobiles. That's against the law. Dimension 5 reporter Lynn Packer explains.
Utah law prohibits tampering with the car's pollution control equipment. Even though the law is on the books, no state agency, neither police nor health, has assigned anyone to enforce it. Tomorrow's report reveals that many Salt Lake area muffler shops will remove a car's catalytic converter, replacing it with plain exhaust pipe. The converter removal is in violation of the law and usually results in increased air pollution. The job, though, often gives better fuel mileage, more power, and enables a car to use cheaper unleaded gasoline. Disregard for the law is so widespread that even several law enforcement agencies have apparently authorized the removal of catalytic converters from police cars. Several states, like Arizona, have annual inspection programs to reduce unlawful tampering. The Utah legislature has refused to develop such a plan here. That foot dragging has miffed federal officials, who now threaten to withdraw $24.6 million in federal funds. Lynn Packer, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
By the way, you can see an in-depth report on the catalytic converter ripoff tomorrow night at 6:30 here on Dimension 5. A new Mormon temple will soon be built in the Salt Lake Valley. That surprise announcement came today at a news conference which was attended by our Channel 5 newsman Dwayne Cardell.
That's right, Dick. The new temple will be called the Jordan River Temple and will be located in the community of South Jordan. Mormon Church President Spencer W. Kimball says the edifice will be built to accommodate the tremendous growth in temple attendance among Mormons along the Wasatch Front.
A major part of the population of the church is here. This is the largest center by far.
You feel that there's enough temple activity then in this area to complement another temple?
Yes, the temples are going past normal at the present time, and we expect that this is the place will supply the greatest number of people.
The exact location for the Jordan River Temple was not disclosed. However, President Kimball said it would be built on a 15-acre site in South Jordan. County records show that the LDS Church recently purchased this 14.62-acre site near 10100 South on 13th West. Church officials would neither confirm nor deny that this is the proposed site. That announcement, they say, will come later. Meantime, design work on the new temple is expected to begin immediately. It's anticipated the new temple will have approximately the same capacity as the LDS Church's Ogden and Provo temples. Dick?
Very good, Dwayne, thank you. Today was another busy day in Washington for Governor Scott Matheson. Late this afternoon, the governor met for 30 minutes in the White House. He received assurances from a National Security Council staff member that no final decision on the transfer of wet eye nerve gas from Colorado to Utah will be made immediately, at least not until after a seismic study of the Utah site is complete. Matheson told Channel 5's Washington Bureau Chief Ted Kapner completion of the study could take 2 to 3 weeks. Kapner has more now on the governor's Washington schedule.
Matheson's nonstop 2-day schedule has included a meeting, his first, with all 4 members of Utah's congressional delegation. Somewhat surprisingly, it too turned into a closed meeting, but Matheson later said the primary subject was the level of funding for the Central Utah project, which won't be what these Utahns would like if President Carter's just proposed budget finally prevails.
In the meantime, Senator Orrin Hatch is already making plans to filibuster a bill coming to the floor of the Senate in mid-March. Hatch says he and Texas Senator John Tower will try to kill the administration's labor law reform bill by talking it to death. That bill would make it easier for unions to organize by requiring elections soon after they're requested. Hatch says the bill would, in effect, do away with the state's rights to prohibit union shops. Many of Utah's elderly are eligible for property tax refunds, but the State Tax Commission today says only 1,000 people have applied so far, and they still have 95% of that money to give away. Those over 65 who earned less than $7,000 last year but paid property tax or rent are eligible. The average refund so far has been $114. The resort community of Park City will get an economic boost this year. Shelley Osterloh says that Sun Classic Films will be spending a lot more time and money at that location.
As he grew, he became the best friend Adams ever had, and together they became a legend.
Grizzly Adams is one of 2 national TV shows produced in Utah. The other is the Donnie and Marie Show. Producers of both programs claim their success is based on G-rated family entertainment.
Sun Classic's main production facility is here in Park City. This year, Sun Classic will film 2 additional primetime series besides Grizzly Adams, plus 3 feature films, all in Utah, with a budget of more than $18 million. The Sun Classic success story translates into economic growth for Utah, and particularly for Park City.
Basically, I'll give it to you in a quick rundown. The good news was that it was a good year for Sun.
Sun President Charles Sallier today announced plans to expand their facilities at Park City, adding several buildings and employing more than 200 people. And that's a real boost to the people of Park City, particularly now that mining operations here have shut down.
So I think that it means for Utah not only the economic impact, but they're emerging as a family film center.
So, along with the Osmonds, Schick Sun Classic testifies to the success of family entertainment, and that Utah is the place they want that success to grow. Shelley Osterloh, Channel 5 Eyewitness News in Park City.
You may be winning international prizes. Tonight, by the way, Maestro Marisa Bravanel will conduct the works of Shostakovich, Franck, and Chopin. The first performance of the symphony was almost 40 years ago at the University of Utah. If your tastes lean more toward gardening than baby grands, you may be thinking about building a greenhouse. But Channel 5's Clint Warby says that unless you're really serious about the greenhouse business, don't do it.
About 100 individuals showed up for the 3rd annual Utah Greenhouse Growers Conference. Some are commercial growers, others who like to putter in greenhouses for a hobby. The overriding concern, the increase in fuel costs to run a greenhouse. In fact, Washington State expert Bernie Wesenberg says a hobby greenhouse is not a wise choice, not only from the fuel standpoint, but the structure should be at least 30 feet by 100 feet to be profitable and not a nuisance. He says most people don't realize what they are getting into when they start a greenhouse. Despite that somewhat negative attitude, statistics show an ever-increasing amount of interest in greenhouses, both commercial and hobby. Utah State University now teaches a course in greenhouses, and manufacturers report their business is good. Clint Warby for the Channel 5 Eyewitness News, Salt Lake City.
If you don't grow your own tomatoes, Angelo will tell you how to shop for them. Don't be a tomato pincher, be a tomato shaker. Shelley Osterloh explains.
Angelo, you've got a real cross-section of fruits and vegetables here. Berries, peppers, cucumbers. What is the one thing that all of these have in common?
Well, all of them are grown in the country of Mexico, and they come across the border down here at Nogales, Arizona.
Is this tomato in Mexico yesterday?
Day before
Day before yesterday.
Yeah.
How do I pick a good tomato when I go to the store?
You got it right there. You get a high crown tomato.
Tall
that
this
means,
way, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like floors in an elevator, and the thing of it is, you get it smooth on top. And you notice right here, this is 100% clean down there. That means that it's number 1. And this tells you right there where the stem was pulled out.
Now
You
I can see
that
it's
little
green. It's green right in
that
there.
That means that it's fresh. If it was black or brown, it'd be old.
Angelo, the price of tomatoes has been real low the last week or two. Why is that?
Well, it's on account of the storm that was back east there. All of the east was kind of socked in, and they couldn't draw out of Nogales because they couldn't unload back there. Some of the trucks couldn't even get in there, and so that's why they're cheap.
Angelo, the other day I was in the grocery store and I saw a lady pick up a tomato and shake it like a rattle next to her ear.
Uh-huh.
Why?
Well, because she probably comes from back in Florida or Texas. The tomatoes that come from there inside are full of water, and you cut one that runs a river right on your table.
Well, you don't want that, do you?
No, these don't do that.
I can't hear a thing.
All right, that means they're cream.
Okay, Angelo, we'll be listening to tomatoes from now on.
All right.
Thank you. I'm Shelley Osterloh, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
You old tomato pincher, you.
I was going to say, I'll bet
I knew
you've
you
shaken
were.
a few tomatoes in your day.
Yes, indeed. By the way, it's time to start thinking about tomatoes. I know you're thinking about it all the time.
Always.
But I mean the kind that you grow in your own garden. You can order your seeds now. You can plant them inside the house, ready to put out. Well,
thank you.
Gardening time is near at hand, and so is the weather. Very interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute.
A Salt Lake County commissioner is charged with violating campaign laws, and the nationwide coal strike continues as supplies run low tonight. Those stories and more next on the Eyewitness News.
And now, the Channel 5 Eyewitness News, rated #1 in Mountain America.
Good evening. 2 misdemeanor complaints were filed today against Salt Lake County Commissioner William Hutchinson. Both involve alleged violations of campaign disclosure laws. Hutchinson is charged with failure to report a $6,000 campaign contribution from the Nagel Construction Company.
The second complaint alleges the commissioner did not file a campaign finance report disclosing how much campaign money was spent after the election. According to the county attorney's complaint, $6,900 of campaign money was pocketed by Hutchinson himself. Newsman Jack Ford talked to County Attorney Paul Van Dam today. He asked if the charges are serious enough to force Hutchinson from office.
It would depend upon one's interpretation of whether or not these amounted to crimes of moral turpitude or high misdemeanors. And we haven't made a decision on that yet. It would require a separate filing for removal. We haven't done that, nor do we anticipate doing that at this time.
Would it be up to this office here to decide whether that should happen?
Yes, it would.
Van Dam says investigations into other allegations against Hutchinson continue. He says more charges may be filed in the future. Commissioner Hutchinson could not be reached for any comment today. The FBI today began circulating wanted posters on Theodore Bundy. Bundy, a former University of Utah law student, escaped from the Garfield County, Colorado jail, where he is being held on a murder charge. He had earlier been convicted of kidnapping and sentenced to the Utah State Prison. The FBI says Bundy should be considered armed and dangerous. Violence erupted in the coal fields of Indiana and Alabama today as negotiations failed to end the record 60-day-old coal strike. In St. Petersburg, Indiana, a United Mine worker was shot to death during a disturbance at a non-union mine. Alabama state troopers used tear gas to quell a group of some 200 striking miners who responded with a barrage of dynamite, small arms fire, rocks, and burning pieces of wood. Top negotiators in the meantime from both sides of the coal dispute have left Washington for the weekend, but federal mediators will meet with representatives to work on unresolved issues. Barry Seraphin has this report.
Union President Arnold Miller was to have briefed his bargaining council this morning, but President Carter, intervening for the first time, requested that the meeting be postponed for a day. One source speculated that bringing other union officials in at this point might have disrupted the negotiation process. Miller did meet with federal mediators for 5.5 hours. The mediator's only contact with management was by phone. Miller later drove away without talking to reporters. The situation as of tonight appears to be this. Industry and union negotiators have agreed on procedures for curbing wildcat strikes and for restoring miners' health benefits, but remain stuck on the question of how much money will go into benefits and wages. Members of the union's bargaining council have put off their meeting until Tuesday and have gone home. Union President Miller has reportedly left Washington for the weekend, and optimism about an imminent settlement of the 2-month-old strike is fading. Barry Seraphin, CBS News, at Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service headquarters.
Yesterday, we showed you how striking miners in Utah's Carbon County are getting along. Today, Channel 5's Patricia Hovis checked with Utah's major coal customers to see how supplies are holding out.
The state's 3 biggest coal users are confident they'll keep going at least another month with the amount of coal they have on hand right now. Here in Provo, U.S. Steel's Geneva Works has enough coal piled near the plant to keep the steelworks going until the middle of March. To the north, Kennecott copper officials say they've got enough coal near Magna to keep their operations going for another month. When the strike started, Kennecott had stockpiled enough coal to last for at least 4 months and keep the copper company going. Utah Power and Light officials also knew the coal strike was coming, and the utility bought and stored enough coal to keep the generators going for 3 months. Over 6,000 tons of coal are used daily by generating plants like this Castlegate one, and at that rate, the utility isn't taking any chances on running out. Utah Power and Light officials say they're stretching their current coal supply by buying power from other utilities and adjusting their own plant maintenance schedules. With these procedures in effect, Utah Power says there'll be no shortage of electricity-producing coal, at least through the end of March. Patricia Hovis, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
Unemployment inched downward to 6.3% last month, the lowest level in more than 3 years. The Labor Department's first monthly employment report for 1978 showed a slight improvement from December's 6.4% level, mostly due to a significant increase in women entering the labor force. Plans have been announced to build a new LDS temple in the Salt Lake Valley. Channel 5's Dwayne Cardall tonight says the new temple will be built to relieve overcrowding at the church's other temples along the Wasatch Front.
Mormon Church President Spencer W. Kimball and his counselors appeared at a morning news conference to announce plans to build the new temple.
The temple will be a reasonable size and will be built in the lower part of the valley so that it will take care of the mass of the church population which is in this Wasatch Front.
The temple will be called the Jordan River Temple and will be located in the community of South Jordan. The exact location was not disclosed. However, President Kimball said it would be built on a 15-acre site in South Jordan. County records show that the LDS Church recently purchased this 14.62-acre site near 10100 South on 1300 West. Church officials would neither confirm nor deny that this is the proposed site. That announcement, they said, would come later. Meantime, design work on the new edifice is expected to begin immediately. Today, the church also announced that plans are being considered for the construction of additional new temples in outlying areas of the church. Dwayne Cardall, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
The Utah Symphony Orchestra chalked up its 3,000th performance tonight in the Salt Lake Tabernacle. Tonight, Maestro Marisa Bravanel led the orchestra in compositions by Shostakovich, Franck, and Chopin. The symphony's first performance, by the way, was almost 40 years ago at the University of Utah.
When you're planning for your future.
Egyptian President Anwar Sadat was in the nation's capital for weekend talks with President Carter. Sadat arrived on the south lawn of the White House, where he embraced our president and told Mr. Carter that Egypt wants to purge all souls of prejudice and hatred. Sadat then called for a new Middle East in which the Palestinians and all other peoples would be free and secure in their own lands.
We are now at a historic and crucial crossroad. Since I undertook my mission to Jerusalem against all odds, events have proven that the great ideal of peace is unfortunately fragile and vulnerable. We have to remedy this situation. We must fortify the structure of peace and reinforce the faith of hundreds of millions in the validity of the nation that peace is not only necessary, but also...
unveiled its new $800,000 weapon today, the XM1 tank. This piece of machinery is billed as twice as powerful and twice as fast as other tanks. But there was one hitch in today's demonstration. The driver couldn't get the vehicle out of reverse. The Navy, meanwhile, test-fired 2 of its cruise missiles from a submerged submarine. One of them sank, though, apparently from engine failure. These were the first Tomahawk series to be launched from a submerged sub. They were fired from the USS Barb off the Southern California coast. The one that was lost was the 6th to malfunction and abort in 25 tests. At least 10 people are dead, 4 missing in a series of alpine avalanches in France and Italy that have destroyed scores of chalets and buried roads and railroad tracks. Heavy snowfall in the Alps in the last 3 weeks has created huge snowdrifts, which are now collapsing under their own weight. The snow has closed down dozens of mountain roads, isolating many villages throughout that entire region. So once again, Kent, we're sitting in pretty good shape right here in Utah.
Not bad, Richard. Pretty good shape. You
What
said
does it
that,
look like
didn't
for the
you?
weekend?
Nice, very nice. And we have a very interesting bit of news for you about the southern part of our state. A ski report, complete forecasts, everything weather-wise coming up next on Eyewitness News.
Welcome to the new Norton's Food Center in Pleasant Grove. Norton's average and
Cooling off a bit now in Salt Lake City. Here are the pinpoint statistics. As of 10 o'clock, our temperature is now 39 degrees under mostly cloudy skies and mild but cooling temperatures. Sunrise for tomorrow morning at 7:35, sunset tomorrow afternoon. The barometric pressure is now rising a little bit. It's at 30.34 if you'd like to set yours at home. There's the high and the low for today and the records for this day. We have no radar. Skies are pretty clear as of this time. Let's go right to a satellite picture that shows weather across the country today and what things were like. We've had partly cloudy skies today on the Atlantic coast, and most of the plain states in the southwest were partly cloudy, and some storminess, light snow falling tonight in the Great Lakes area. They had a few showers and thunder showers in Florida and the northern Gulf Coast region. Other than that, no major storms and no temperature records broken today. Pretty calm day to end the week this afternoon. Here on the national map now, let's take a look at things on the surface, and most of the news is in the west. We have a very interesting piece to tell you about tonight. The soil survey, the snow survey just completed by the Soil Conservation Service. I'll get it out yet, shows continued accumulations of snow and moisture in San Juan and Grand counties, and that's very good news. The Blue Mountains range from 71% of normal now at the north to 102% of normal at the south end, and the La Salle Mountains now at 105 to 119% of normal throughout that range, and that's very good news. That's as of January 30th and 31st. They continue to get more snow, and the snow has lots of water in it, and we're in pretty good shape now. Okay, in the west, we've had a little rain and snow in the northern part of the region today, and that has ended as of 10 o'clock tonight. It was mostly north of southern Idaho this afternoon. Variable clouds in most of the area tonight, except that it's clear to partly cloudy in southwest Utah. The trend now, here on the upper air chart, let's take a look at it. We'll have a high-pressure ridge that's now over the west coast, and it'll be creeping in here over the weekend. And over that ridge, the storms will flow up and over our area and weaken as they do so. That's what high pressure does to the storm systems. And as they weaken, we'll just have a few showers in the northern part of Mountain America and variably cloudy skies elsewhere. Pinpoint Mountain America now. There's the forecast for Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, southeastern Idaho. Glance over each of those. There's the forecast for eastern Nevada. And now pinpoint Utah. The high for tomorrow, low for tonight in each of those cities. Variable clouds through Sunday with areas of fog and low clouds in the eastern valleys and cold temperatures there. Elsewhere, the days will be mild with highs in the upper 40s and 50s. Salt Lake City, Ogden, and Provo now. Variable clouds and light winds with a 10% chance of a shower late tonight through tomorrow night. Continued mild temperatures. High tomorrow 54 and the low 34. 5-day outlook Monday through Wednesday. A chance of rain or snow on Monday. Otherwise, more of the same, dry and beautifully mild. Balmy spring weather we're having. Dick, skiing is terrific everywhere. All of Utah's resorts. Excellent.
Love it, love it, love it.
Okay.
Charles Kuralt has been on the road in the snowy backwoods of New England recently. This time he's traveling in style in a horse-drawn sleigh.
Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Well, it turns out to be true. You can't go for a sleigh ride without laughing. And least of all if you're Carol Matthews, who loves it so. Carol Matthews first hitched a horse to a sleigh when he was 5 years old, and he's never missed a winter since, which adds up to 60 winters, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtail ring, making spirits bright. It's all true. Carol Matthews, with reins in his hand, must be the brightest spirit in New England.
Well, this is the way to see the winter woods.
You bet it is. Hang on.
Carol Matthews is almost, but not quite, one of a kind. There are several people left, almost all of them in Connecticut and Massachusetts, to whom dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh is more than a song. The sleighs have been found and restored or handed down in the family, and on winter weekends in the snow-covered meadows of places like Hampton, Massachusetts, you find yourself looking over your shoulder for Mr. Courier and Mr. Ives to capture the moment. Carol Matthews is always there, often with his daughter Sally by his side, and because he can't help it, always laughing. Jingle bells have survived into the snowmobile age because a few people are left who know their secret. Bells on bobtail ringing really do make spirits bright. The next day, when we dropped in to say goodbye to Carol Matthews, we found him out sleighing with his family, laughing all the way. Charles Kuralt, CBS News, on the road in Middlebury, Connecticut.
A little story on a quick shot artist tonight.
You ever heard of Pittsburgh Jack?
No.
Well, he was in town.
Was he?
We'll give you a look at Pittsburgh Jack doing a little hustling in just a moment. Well, a big basketball game tomorrow night down in Provo could turn out to be the Danny show. The battle of the two freshmen, Danny Ainge of BYU, Danny Vrains of Utah. The two coaches each talked about the other team on the eve of the big game.
We must contain Danny Ainge. I think it's obvious. He's averaging 23 points a game. He's got about 5 assists, 5 rebounds. He He's 120 out of 140 from the free throw line, and he just has the ball a lot and really does a lot of good things with the ball. I've never seen a freshman that had more to do with the outcome of a game than Danny Ainge.
Outstanding basketball team. Jerry does a great job of coaching that team. We're going to have to play, I'm sure, probably our best basketball game of the season, even though it's at BYU, in order to stay close, and hopefully we can do that. I know this, we'll play hard, and I think we're going to play very well. Our guys are looking forward to it, and so is our coaching staff.
That game will be live on KSL at 7:30 tomorrow evening. A couple of big games locally tonight. Idaho State took over first possession in the Big Sky Conference tonight as they beat Weber State 77-67. Utah State won their 16th ball game as they downed Denver, and Snow College defeated College of Eastern Utah 84-73. North Carolina, the number 3 team, was stunned by Furman on North Carolina's home floor. 89-83, Furman the victor over North Carolina. Southern Utah State beat Western State 95-70, and Dixie over Northern Colorado 124-57. Last night, Michigan knocked off nationally ranked Michigan State with a 30-foot shot at the buzzer. Here are the highlights.
Michigan has defeated Michigan State 10 of its last 11 games in basketball, and the Wolverines were spoilers last night in Jennison Fieldhouse. Michigan State star freshman Irvin Johnson got this layup and was fouled. He led his team with 22 points and 8 assists, but the Wolverines have a fine freshman of their own in number 40 Mike McGee from Omaha, Nebraska, who missed a shot here but followed up and scored. McGee had 23 points before fouling out with 4 minutes to play. Spartan coach Judd Heathcote has led his team to a 15-3 record, but now with 2 straight losses. Michigan State made mistakes down the stretch. After an Irvin Johnson miss, Michigan got its fast break going with Dave Baxter to Joel Thompson for the big dunk. It was 63-all with 3 seconds to go. You'll see Mark Lozier, a reserve guard, hit a 30-footer from the top of the key. Michigan winning at the buzzer 65-63. The Wolverines now 11-6 on the season and just 1 game back of Purdue and Michigan State for first place in the Big Ten race.
That was quite a shot. I'd like you to take a look at Jack White. He's known throughout many pool halls as Pittsburgh Jack. He's been a hustler for 20 years. Here he's doing a shot that made Jackie Gleason famous in the movie The Hustler. He performed at Weber State today and at Utah State yesterday. This is the old railroad shot. He made this one famous on the Johnny Carson show. And a very difficult shot. Here's the ball right against the rail and into the pocket. How about this one? 6 balls, 6 different pockets, 1 shot. And look at the next one. Here's the 8 ball, blocked off from the pocket by 4 other balls. Not for old Pittsburgh Jack, right in the side pocket. One of the great trick shot artists, and he won the national championship. We'll take a look at more sports in just a moment. Salt Lake Golden Eagles, who lost a heartbreaker to the Kansas City Red Wings in a sudden death overtime earlier this week, defeated the Red Wings over at the Salt Palace tonight by a score of 4-1. It's their last home game until February 22nd. Northern Colorado gymnasts muscled up 133 points today to win the Intermountain Athletic Conference gymnastic meet in Provo, Utah. Host Brigham Young finished second with 125 points, followed by Colorado State with 121 points, and Weber State at 111 points. Jill Knab of University of Northern Colorado won first place all around with 34.05. Other top scorers, Pat Davis of Colorado, and the men's gymnastics, defending champion Oklahoma defeated a strong BYU team 220-219. Hubert Green has a 1-shot lead after 2 rounds of the Hawaii Open Golf Tournament. He fired a 66 today to give him a total of 135, a 1-stroke lead over Wynn, Kratzert, and Hinkle 2 shots behind, and Gene Littler, defending champion, 3 strokes behind. Dick?
Okay, Paul, thank you. Utah Governor Scott Matheson, who is in the nation's capital for a national governors conference today, heard the Carter administration's position on the Central Utah Water Project. Our Washington correspondent Ted Kapner reports.
Matheson spent the morning chairing a meeting of the National Governors Association's Water Resources Committee working on a new national water policy. Secretary Cecil Andrus attended that meeting and the news conference. Matheson said specific issues dealt with during the meeting included state water rights and water quality and quantity.
One area of serious concern to the states is the matter of Federal Reserve rights, as well as reserved rights for Indians and Indian tribes. We are very concerned, first of all, that those matters be considered jointly and not separated. We may have a difference of opinion about that approach.
Matheson says the states must be assured of continued water from federal lands in any new national policy. Secretary Andrus said he continues to favor completion of the Central Utah project, but that national priorities require setting the funding level for its construction below the level requested by Utah leaders. And even though Western Bureau of Reclamation officials said this week they could effectively use $52 million in construction money on the project in the coming fiscal year.
I would say to you that the federal bureaucrats can spend any amount of money that you make available to them. And the Bureau of Reclamation is no different from the rest of them. But when you look at the revenue that's available for the nation and the total budget, the light of priority, then you have to do some trimming from place to place. But I don't think that you can say that the total amount of dollar contracts that can be let on Central Utah project for 79 has been reached, because also in the Bureau of Reclamation budget there are times when other contracts you anticipated letting are not let, and maybe some of that money can be used in Central Utah project.
Matheson chairs another meeting on the National Water Plan in Denver in 2 weeks. Ted Kapner, Channel 5 News, Washington.
Matheson was also assured by the White House today that those controversial wet-eye bombs will not be moved to Utah until a study is made on the possibilities of an earthquake at the Tooele storage site. That study could take as long as 3 weeks. Last year, the Department of the Interior found an old law that limited a farmer to 160 acres of land. Interior wanted the law enforced until it got a lot of pressure. Tonight's editorial supports that change of mind.
We're happy to learn that Interior Secretary Cecil Andrus may be backing down from an earlier plan to break up large farms. Last year, the Secretary announced that he would enforce an all but forgotten 1902 law, which limited the size of farms and reclamation areas to 160 acres. He intended to put his plan into effect January 1 of this year. Legal action by California farmers forced him to delay the ruling until March 1. Now, due to pressure from the farm community and from Secretary of Agriculture Berglund, Secretary Andrus has admitted that he may change his mind. Instead of enforcing the 1902 law, he may go to Congress and ask for a change in the law. KSL believes the effort to limit the size of 1978 farms based on the 1902 concept was ill-conceived in the first place. The plan to redistribute excess farmland by lottery, which was part of the Andrus proposal, made even less sense. We hope that the Secretary of Interior does not change his mind again. KSL encourages listeners and viewers to write their congressional representatives to express their opinions on the 160-acre farm limitation plan. KSL welcomes contrasting points of view from responsible individuals.
Newsreel tonight shows us a license plate that tells a story of its own.
Me that the owner of this car would be driving a Mercedes-Benz. Actually, we're not sure who this car belongs to, but it was sitting in front of Wagstaff's house at Toyota, and with a license plate that reads Mrs. Wag. Well, need we say more? We waited as long as we could, but we figured now that it's February, a Christmas sale is fair game for us to take a good shot at, especially a Christmas gun sale. And this sign can still be seen hanging across Main Street in Pleasant Grove. Perhaps they figure if they leave it up long enough, it'll be time to use it again for next Christmas season. When we first turned onto Maybe Drive, we thought maybe it really was a drive. But as we continued around it, we realized Maybe Drive would be better named Maybe Circle. That's Newsreel.
Former President Richard Nixon called up the sports department of the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner to congratulate reporter Gordon Jones on a sensitive story he wrote recently about new Rams football coach George Allen. It wasn't until halfway through the conversation Mr. Nixon realized he was acquainted with the young reporter. Seems Jones' father was the president of Whittier College when Nixon attended. Anyway, to make a long story short, Jones usually covers the horse races, and Nixon obligingly advised the reporter not to bet on them. You can't win, said the former president. Well, Nixon hung up. Jones pondered the advice for a bit, made a bet, and collected $263. Seems Walter Mondale is unlike any of his 41 vice presidential predecessors. Some feel he is the most clued in, leaned on vice president in the history of this country.
It's what I wanted it to be,
It's what we planned it to be, but it's what I had my doubts that it would be. In other words, I wasn't at all optimistic that we would succeed in bringing about this, what I call an institutional change in the vice presidency. In fact, my role seems to broaden and deepen every day. It's really unique in American history, and I hope that that will be the precedent for the future.
Mondale spends about 15% of his time on the road or in the air speech-making. His staff claims 3/4 of his time is spent right in the White House.
I am privy to all the secret information. I meet with the president repeatedly, sometimes in larger meetings, but often alone. He told me that his schedule, when I receive it, is one, and I'm invited to go to any meeting I want to, without a further invitation, unless he tells me that it's going to be thoroughly private. He's never done that. So I go to any scheduled meeting in the president's office at my option.
And as Roger Mudd of CBS put it today, it seems this country has been without a vice president all these years, and perhaps we wouldn't miss Walter Mondale, but Jimmy Carter certainly would. Ah, Washington, that seems to be where it's all happening. Don Olson, a familiar face probably to most of you, who used to anchor in my place several times and on the weekends a few years ago, is now back with us. He's been in Washington for 3 years as press aide for Senator Jake Garn. And Don, tell us a little bit about the political process. What's it like back there? It must be fascinating.
Very fascinating, very educational, lots of fun. A lot of games are played back there. I think that if the average person could see, Dick, what kind of games come into play back there, they would be a little disappointed, really, in the legislative process. But it's exciting back there. Lots of fun, as I say, but I'm also excited to be back here.
It's good to have you back, and Don will be putting his expertise in the political field to work as our political specialist here on the Eyewitness News, and also anchoring the weekend newscasts.
Right. Tomorrow night is the first go at that.
Good, good. Don, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave.
Be sure to tune in tomorrow night also at 6:30 when Dimension 5 will take a look at illegal removal of catalytic converters. Have a great weekend. Here's Gunsmoke.